It's a song of praise to the Maker. The thrush sings high in the tree. It's a song of praise to the Maker. The gray whale sings in the sea. And by the Spirit, you and I can join our voice to the holy cry and sing, sing, sing to the Maker too. It's a call of life to the giver, where waves and waterfalls roar. It's a call of life to the giver, where high tides break on the shore. And by the Spirit, you and I can join our voice to the holy cry and sing, sing, sing to the Maker too. It's a hymn of love to the lover. The bumblebees hum along. It's a hymn of love to the lover. The summer breeze joins the song. And by the Spirit, you and I can join our voice to the holy cry and sing, sing, sing to the Maker too. It's the chorus of all creation. It's sung by all living things. It's the chorus of all creation, a song the universe sings. And by the Spirit, you and I can join our voice to the holy cry and sing, sing, sing to the Maker too.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this last day of the decision-making sessions for General Council 44. I hope that you have had a chance for rest and relaxation, a time to be with folks and to catch up on what's happening, and a time to really get some good sleep in. I'd like to thank former okay, let me try that again. Former moderator Jordan Cantwell for stepping into the chair yesterday. I'm afraid that after our afternoon sessions, the only place that I could do anything was flaking right out. So thank you very much, Jordan, for being able to take on that role. You will have noticed when you came into the space today that the chat has been closed. The leadership made that decision because of the concerns that we spoke about yesterday, recognizing that there was a distraction from that space. So we have closed it down. We recognize that there may still be a need to be able to contact, say, the business table regarding the informational questions like where are we at the moment? And you can still do that because the business table is a co-host, and so you will be able to contact the business table through that same chat space still. Having said that, yesterday I also let you know that if you have questions regarding points of order, or if you have a point of personal privilege, that the place to go with that is by sending it to our parliamentarian. And the parliamentarian can be most quickly reached by emailing them at csampa@united-church.ca. That's csampa@united-church.ca. I believe there was also another email address that we shared yesterday. I just want to check and make sure that was regarding, thank you, regarding abstentions. If you wish to have your abstention recorded, all you need to do is email your name and the proposal number to info@generalcouncil44.ca and just let us know in the subject line abstention. And that way, if you have decided to abstain from a vote and you would like that recorded, that's the way to do that. We did a lot of work yesterday. We did a lot of work yesterday. And today, we are going to continue to do a lot of work. And in that work, continue to worship God with all of our hearts. One of the things that happens at every general council, and this is speaking as someone who has been to way too many, is that we always get to the end of the council feeling like we haven't gotten enough done. We always come to the end of council with things that are unfinished, and some of them are very near and dear to our hearts. I'm saying that now because it doesn't matter what process we use, and we try and we tweak and we do all of this work to try and make it work at every general council. And every general council, we find that we do the work that we can, and we have to leave some for the other decision-making bodies. And so I'm going to ask that we get into this work with the best of our ability, but also recognize that the church will continue to do what it does with everything that we have done over the past almost 7 months. So let's continue with that work now. And we're going to test our simply voting again. I know we did lots of votes, but it's always an important thing for us to do at the beginning of the day. And so I'm going to ask you please to go to your Feedloop site and click on the voting button. And could I ask please that GC44 test vote be open? That ballot is open. And this ballot is regarding the question, I drive an electric vehicle. So if you drive an electric vehicle, please click yes. If you drive a vehicle that's not electric, please click no, and then click continue. And we're asking that everyone who has the ability to vote, please vote on this test vote to make sure everything's working. Once you have voted, you can then click, if your ballot is the way you want it to be, you can confirm that or you can go back by hitting the change button, make the change, and then you'll have the chance to confirm it again. Once you confirm your ballot, it will be sent in. So I'm going to leave this open for about another 30 seconds. And I would ask you please to, oh, great, and I have to sign in. So I would ask you please to vote now. And probably by the time I get back in here, we can close the ballot. So I would invite the ballot to be closed at this point, please. And I have I've learned to read the fact that simply voting switches things around. It puts the number at the top of the largest vote. So the most of us who voted do not drive an electric vehicle. About 86% of us don't drive an electric vehicle, and about 14% of us do drive an electric vehicle. So thank you very much for doing that. And Lord love a moose. So let's continue now with our worship time.
I've been asked, who is Jesus? He's the human face of God, and he spoke profoundly of simple things like the lilies of the field and the salt of the earth. He also was firmly in the prophetic tradition of Isaiah and Amos and Jeremiah, lifting up a vision for us of the proposed world of love and mercy and compassion, which does not yet exist, but it is an alternate view of reality to that of the perceived world, the imperfect world in which we live. And he energizes us by inviting us to live in the perceived world, ordinary world, and though we're already informed by the proposed world of love and mercy and compassion. He came that I might have life and might have it more abundantly. And in that sense, he offers salvation to everyone, and he is our Savior. Let's unpack that word salvation. Its linguistic roots are very interesting. In Hebrew, salvation means wide, spacious, liberated, free, not pushed into a corner, as happened to the Jewish people. In Greek, the word salvation linguistically means deliverance, deliverance from all that impedes my growth, from ignorance, from superstition, from unknown perils. And linguistically in Latin, the word salvation means authenticity of being, integrity of being sound, just what a human being ought to be. So in that sense of being wide, spacious, liberated, free, delivered from all that impedes my growth, and being authentically myself, Jesus is my Savior.
And we are graced again by words of one of our former moderators. Thank you, Lois. We're going to continue now with words from the Friends at Council.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining from this morning and this afternoon.
Allô, bonjour, c'est Marie-Claude. Je voulais être sûre que je suis bien connectée parce que hier, j'ai eu un peu de crash. Alors, nous sommes encore bénis de venir chez vous pour vous donner quelques annonces. Ce matin, nous n'avons pas beaucoup d'annonces, mais quand même, nous venons répéter encore une fois que nous avons besoin de célébrer avec vous. Les gens qui ont été célébrés ont été vraiment bénis et nous ont remerciés. Alors, voilà, si vous avez quelque chose à célébrer, vous ou quelqu'un de votre famille ou un proche, n'hésitez pas. Appelez-nous, comme le chat est fermé, appelez-nous ou bien allez carrément sur la page Feedloop et vous pouvez poster votre célébration, votre annonce. Nous allons nous donner le devoir de le partager avec la Cour. Je pense que Nancy a une autre annonce à faire. Nancy?
One of the aspects of in-person general council and conference meetings, I remember from my own participation so many years ago in Fredericton at my first general council as Youth Forum, and all these years since, that we have enjoyed the presence of our youth and young adults in our table groups, in worship leadership, throughout our in-person meetings. And we haven't had that same opportunity to engage our youth and young adults this time in an online forum. So I'm going to invite two members of Youth Forum, leadership and participants. I have Thea Sheridan Jonah is here, as well as Sophie Hubbard, just to share a little bit about what's happening in Youth Forum in this method of gathering. And we will come back after they're done. Marie, Claude, and I will see you this afternoon. So once Youth Forum is finished, we'll pass it back to Richard. But hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all later. So over to Youth Forum.
Merci.
And you might think that I'm not Thea and Sophie, but you would be wrong. I challenge you to prove that I am not them. Any moment, you will notice that I really am them. It's just the way it goes sometimes. You think you see something, but what you see is not what you think you see.
Thank you, Alan. I think that was a perfect introduction for us. So I am going to try to keep my part short. My name is Thea Sheridan Jonah. I am the program coordinator for Youth Forum this summer, and I'm working along with Alana Martin and Amy Crawford doing the program for our youth. So unfortunately, this year for GC, there was no winter gathering and there was no pilgrimage for the youth. But instead, we have a really cool opportunity where all of the youth who are participating in General Council, including Sophie and many others, are all hired as interns for the whole summer. So they have actually been working since early July, and they have been preparing for this meeting. They've gotten to meet a lot of people from the GCO. They've gotten to meet past moderators. Michael Blair came and talked to us. And then for the rest of the summer, all of them are going to be working on passion projects in their own regions individually around 4 passion streams that we've created based on the strategic plan. So the 4 passion streams are climate justice, Indigenous justice, anti-racism and inclusion, and Two-Spirit LGBTQIA+, and gender justice. So we have 38 youth who are participating in this meeting, but are also working all summer as interns. And there are 9 regional coordinators who are all young adults who are supporting them in this work. So altogether, we have about 50 youth who have been here for all of this call and who are working for the rest of the summer. So I'm going to turn it over to one of them now.
Hi everyone, my name's Sophia Hubbard, or Sophie, and I use they them pronouns. I'm 17 years old. I live in Brantford, Ontario in the Horseshoe Falls region, and I'm a member of Youth Forum this year. It's my mother and grandfather are both ministers. They've been members of General Council in the past as Youth Forum, as commissioners, and so I guess it's my turn. I'm super excited to be here. Youth Forum's given me so many opportunities this summer. Not only have I got to be a witness to the shaping of the United Church through General Council 44, which is amazing. I've also gotten to meet a whole bunch of fantastic people from all over the country who are smart and passionate and funny, and they bring so much to this. I know we're missing out on being in person, but we've definitely made Zoom our own, even when we're staring at our computer screens for 4 hours a day. It feels like we're one. It's like a family, and it's safe. It's a place to ask questions and listen to each other. Our first couple of weeks had been dedicated to learning and preparing for General Council with tons of special guests and workshop and so many proposals to read. And it's so rewarding to finally be here and watching everyone do their thing. And after General Council ends, I'm really excited to begin working on our passion projects. I think I'm going to choose to spearhead LGBTQ plus justice as a member of that community with a focus on gender nonconforming individuals and their role in the church. I will admit that I'm super nervous. It's really intimidating to be a part of General Council and talking to all of you right now because I don't know most of you. And I feel like a little kid who doesn't have much to say in the presence of so much knowledge and wisdom. Sorry. But I'd like to call back to the first day of Youth Forum, where Alana and Thea shared a Bible verse with us that I think means a lot. So it's Jeremiah 1:7. But the Lord said to me, do not say I am a youth, for you shall go to all to whom I send you, and whatever I command you, you shall speak. Us, the youth, we're not just the church's future, we're its present, and we are here now.
Sophie, Thea, thank you so much for sharing with the council, and thank you all of members of Youth Forum who are being shared through the words that were there. One of the things that I really appreciate is that sense of being nervous about speaking and not knowing whether or not I have something that's important to add into this. The reality is that each of us carries with us so many important things for this community to share together. So I am deeply thankful that all of you have been part of this and continue to be part of this as Youth Forum and General Council 44 to share those passions. And I'm really excited to hear about the ministries that you are going to be living out as you do this work of internship, as you get into these passion projects and as life goes on. So thank you so much for sharing with us, and thank you so much for continuing that work after this General Council is done. I'm going to hand things over to the business table and Alan.
Thank you, moderator. A couple of quick notes as feedback that the equity support team has heard that they thought would be worthwhile for us to hear reminders of. So the speakers list and how that works. So it is in the opening procedural motion. The purpose of the speakers list is to help the moderator ensure that we hear from different voices and different perspectives throughout the council, and it does state clearly in that motion as well that the order you raise your hand is not necessarily the order you will be placed on the list. It is to make sure that we hear from a variety of perspectives. Another note on how we hear minority voices, which is always something we want to make sure that we do, but is not always easy. The hope with the discussion groups and the process is that more people feel comfortable and able to speak, and the co-hosts and the note takers are also instructed to make sure that there is an attempt made to capture minority voices in those discussion notes. So the notes shouldn't only reflect a majority opinion. That doesn't mean that's not what happens sometimes, but in general, there is a guidance that we try to hear those voices at all the steps in the process, though recognition that it's not perfect. There will also be an evaluation that will be sent out after the end of General Council, which is after the service of installation on August 7th. So you will have an opportunity for feedback on format, business process. Was the room too hot or cold? Questions will not be in there because you have full control over that, or as much control as you do of the space that you spend the time for these meetings. That's not on us this time. Yeah, those are my answers to that. So I will also, for folks who may have arrived later, the chat has been closed for this session. The moderator explained at the beginning that the decision was made to close the chat, and if you need to ask a question to the business table, the parliamentarian or equity support, they are available from the drop-down list to direct message. Now, as far as the business, recommended order of business before us, it will be a little different because we've been trying to make sure, or not chronological or whatever that word is, to make sure we go in numerical order or any of that. We're going to try and make sure we do stuff that this body is the best place to make those decisions rather than having it moved to the executive. In a second, I will read through and put up the order we are suggesting for this first session. I will also then talk a little bit about the second session and our hopes there afterwards. So if I can get the list that we're hoping for this session, I'm going to start with Way Forward 29, which is the Remit process revisions, followed by Way Forward 30, affirm existing assessment rate, Way Forward 39, implementation of a captive insurance model, Way Forward 01, climate justice commitment, GS16, which is in response to GCE 06, Part B, Way Forward 12, challenging anti-Semitism, Way Forward 11, decriminalization of illicit substances, Way Forward 33, recognition of LATAB, Way Forward 36, pension and salary equity, Way Forward 37, support for ministry personnel taking parental leave, Way Forward 41, supporting immigration process for ministry personnel. I got a longer list. That's my hope for this session. We can do this, folks. We can do this. The second session today, we will start with what will be GS17, which is the suggested response to the proposals that are still before the council because of the defeat of Way Forward 9. And we will then follow with whatever business we can get to until 5 p.m. Eastern. So we will spend an hour on business, and at that point, anything that is remaining before the council will be referred to the executive. So we have approximately 22 total items before us, and that's what we want to try and work through as best we can. So we're doing okay. We got through a decent chunk in that second, or in yesterday, and I think we can get a lot done, folks. So I'm going to stop blabbering about how we can get stuff done and let us get stuff done. So we're going to pray ourselves into this next session.
Gracious God, Holy One, holy love. You call us to brave and bold decisions in the name of love. Today, right now, you are among us and within as we consider our common good. Guide us, whisper in our ears once again the dream of beloved community, and let us never fall into the dualism that places matters of polity and systems beneath other concerns. Let us minister to the systems in the way we would to one another, to heal, to bring life, to praise your name. Let us bless and uphold one another with structures and polity that bear witness to the light in a way that people not only understand, but also trust, and by which they feel seen and honored and called more deeply into this sacred community of your faithfulness to the world. May the decisions we make today give temporary shelter to the justice you are bringing about in our midst, and may true community become incarnate in our life together, in systems and structures and service and souls. Come and make your home with us here and now. We pray in the name of the incarnate one. Amen.
Amen. And with that, I would ask, please, that Way Forward 29 be brought onto the screen. Way Forward 29, GS07, Remit process revisions. And I would turn to the facilitation team.
Good morning, moderator.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. While several groups expressed support and several had no comment, a number of groups raised concerns about 90-day timelines. One group suggested that with General Council meeting annually, the enactments of remits didn't need to be delegated to GCE. While there appears to be confusion about the implications of the changes, after reviewing the proposal, we don't see the potential for issues raised as concerns. The proposal allows for more flexibility without constraining the church and does address the concerns raised in the discussion. We suggest that the General Council affirm this proposal.
Thank you. Can I ask, please, that that poll number 1 be brought to the screen? Do you feel that what the facilitation team heard generally reflects a summary of all of the discussion groups? I would invite you to close the poll and share the results. Could you open poll number 2, please? Do you feel that what the facilitation team heard generally reflects a summary? Oh, sorry. Do you feel the suggested way forward reflects what was heard? I would invite you to close the poll and share the results. So I'd ask the council to note that there is overall agreement that the facilitation team has been able to do both of these things. Can we move to the wording, please?
Based on the recommendation from the facilitation team, the wording before the council is that the 44th General Council 2022, in response to GS07, affirms this proposal.
Thank you. And this is moved by Michael Blair, seconded by Sue Broderick. I will remind people that we're going to continue to keep the speakers list to a maximum of 5 people, unless there's a need, in my estimation, for a wider response, and that speakers will be held to 1 minute and 30 seconds, or 2 minutes, depending on language realities. Is there anyone who feels the need to speak to this proposal? Heather Sandulans.
Thank you, moderator. Heather Sandulans, Prairie du Pine. I would like to hear from the facilitation team, if it's possible, please, why they believe that why they're recommending that we affirm this proposal without any changes made, given that they heard that there were significant concerns around the timeframes. Please.
Thank you. Before I go to the facilitation team, I'd just like to check if there's anyone else. Okay, no other hands. Facilitation team, is there any response to the question?
Thank you, Heather. So when we looked at the discussion group questions and problems with moving forward and read the proposal itself, the proposal, if I remember correctly, says that it must be at least a certain amount of time. So when it doesn't have to be that period of time. So some of the wording in the proposal actually answered the questions that people had about the timing of the
Thank
Hope
you.
that answers the question.
With no one else at the speakers list, we're going to move to the ballot. I would ask, please, that the ballot be opened, and will be open for a minute at least. And to get to the ballot, please go to Feedloop, click voting. The ballot should be open. If it's not there, please refresh your screen. If you are in favor of the proposal that the 44th General Council 2022 in response to GS07 affirms this proposal, please click yes. If you are opposed, please click no. Then click continue. And if you are comfortable with your ballot, please click continue again. If not, click back and correct it. The ballot will be open for another 20 seconds. The ballot can now be closed. That proposal carries. Could we please bring up Way Forward 30? Way Forward 30, GS09, affirm existing assessment rate and related principles. Facilitation team.
Thank you, moderator. There was broad support for the proposal as is. We suggest affirmation of the proposal.
Could I ask, please, that the first poll be brought forward? Do you feel that what the facilitation team heard generally reflects a summary of all the discussion groups? You can end the poll and share the results. Could we have poll number 2 come up, please? Do you feel the suggested way forward reflects what was heard? I would invite you to end the poll and share the results, please. I would note that the council agrees with both those statements, and therefore I would move to the wording of this proposal.
Based on the recommendation from the facilitation team, the wording before the council is that the 44th General Council 2022, in response to GS09, affirms this proposal.
And from the results of the polls, I would simply move to having this moved by Michael Blair and seconded by Sue Broderick. Does anyone need to speak to this proposal? If so, please raise your virtual hand and go on the speakers list. Seeing no hands being raised, I would ask that the ballot be opened, and it will be open for a minute. If you are in favor of the proposal that the 44th General Council 2022 in response to GS09 affirms this proposal, please click yes. If you are opposed, please click no. To get there, please go to Feedloop, voting, and the ballot should be open. If not, please click refresh. The ballot will be open for another 15 seconds. I would invite you to close the ballot. That proposal carries. I'd ask, please, the proposal Way Forward 39 come up. Way Forward 39, GCE07, implementation of a captive insurance model. Facilitation team.
Thank you, moderator. There is broad support for this proposal. We suggest affirmation of the proposal.
Thank you very much. Could you please open poll number 1? Avez-vous l'impression que le rapport de l'équipe d'animation est une synthèse adéquate des échanges de l'ensemble des groupes de discussion? I'd invite you to end the poll and share the results. That's with 181 people responding. Could we please open poll number 2? Estimez-vous que les voix suivantes proposées reflètent adéquatement ce que l'équipe d'animation a entendu? You can end the poll and share the results. And again, that's with 180 people responding. Seeing that the responses were unanimous, that it was heard and action on, I would please ask that we move to the wording.
Moderator, based on the recommendation from the facilitation team, the wording before the council is that the 44th General Council 2022, in response to GCE 07, affirms this proposal.
This is moved and seconded, please. Is there any discussion on this proposal? Is there anyone who feels the need to speak to this proposal? Heather Sandulans?
I'm really sorry if I'm taking up a lot of speaking time. However, I have been asked by 2 congregations in my region if I would raise this particularly. There is some concern that in the proposal, they talk about using industry standards for the captive model. And it's not that they disagree with the idea, but the industry standard is to base these companies offshore, particularly, I believe, in Bermuda, where there's some issues around taxation. And the questions that have been raised that people have asked me to raise is, just because it's industry standard, is that the standard that we have as a church, as a justice-seeking church, to participate in a system which very well may be undercutting our taxation system? And the second question that they've specifically asked me to raise is, why is that the only option that's available to us? Now, we have asked these questions to other people within the Broader United Church, but the answers that we have received are either not clear or don't seem to have any biblical or justice basis. So I'm wondering if anybody would be able to speak to those points. Thank you.
Thank you. General Secretary.
Moderator, we have offered some responses that have been in the feed loop around these specific questions. Part of it has to do with governance, but I'm going to invite my colleague, Eric Matheson, to speak to them.
Eric, just before you speak, please note that I'm going to need to hold us to that 90-second timer, please.
Yes, Eric Matheson, finance staff at the General Counsel Office. I was the author of the response that was circulated, so I'm not sure that I can offer a more theological context. Both for profit and nonprofit entities, when one is doing a captive insurance, it isn't so much taxation, actually. Certainly, it isn't taxation at all for us. It has to do with the compliance costs that we would have to incur. And every dollar that we spend on administering this arrangement is a dollar that we can't pass on as savings to congregations or save for those inevitable days when there'll be larger claims. So this is very much a business decision, and it is the way these things are structured, whether they're school boards, there's any number of entities that do this. I want to stress that we are taking on risk here, but we are wanting to be bold and daring, and that's why this has come forward.
Thank you, Eric. We're going to move to the ballot. Hold it, please. I moved too quickly. Karen Jaden.
Thank you. I didn't hear an answer to the question that Heather raised from congregations in Prairie to Pine, Karen Jaden, Prairie to Pine region. So I would like to have a clearer answer about the offshore tax havens and the impact of these kinds of insurance plans, whether we're going to be part of those by agreeing to this.
Samuel Grotenberg.
Thank you, moderator. Samuel Grottenberg, a commissioner from Chinook Winds. Yeah, similarly to Karen, I don't think I heard a theological answer to the question that was raised initially. Perhaps a way to phrase this is specifically, what are we avoiding doing in Canada that we can do differently by being offshore?
Thank you.
Sorry, moderator, if I may try to respond to the question. It is important for folks to know that often when we see these offshore things, we think about tax. As Eric has said, having this based outside of the context of Canada is not about tax avoidance. It's about leveraging the capacity to serve the church in a way that is helpful. So I think it's important that there are structures and governance frameworks in place overseas that allow us to be able to provide the service to the church at a reasonable cost. So it's important to do that. It's also important to say that both staff and the finance committee spent a lot of time thinking through this one for the perceptional reason that it was about tax avoidance. It was important for us to make sure that that information was public to commissioners to be able to understand. And so I would say on a kind of a theological ground, the commitment is how can we be together as the community of faith, and how can we maximize or leverage the resources of the church to serve the church as a whole, and the systems that are in place because of a whole host of things allows us to be able to serve the church in this way at a reasonable cost, and it's not with regards to avoiding taxes.
Thank you, General Secretary. We've had 5 speakers at this point, and therefore I'm going to move to the ballot. Well, 3 plus the 2 responses. Sorry. We're going to move to the ballot at this point. And so I would invite you to open feed loop, go to voting. Could we please have the ballot open, and it will be open for a minute. If you are in favor of the proposal that the 44th General Council 2022 in response to GCE 07 affirms this proposal, please click yes. If you are opposed, please click no, then click continue. Once you've confirmed your ballot, it will come through and be counted. There's approximately 30 seconds left in the ballot. The ballot can now be closed. That proposal carries. As we are about to move into a different theme, let's take a moment for prayer.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Dana Alexandre, je viens de Québec, de la région de Nakanaka, et je vais vous offrir une prière pour vivre plus intensément notre lien au Christ. Dieu de grâce et de miséricorde, je me présente devant toi aujourd'hui et j'ai peur et je tremble. Pas parce que tu es effrayant. Je sais que toi, qui as créé l'univers et la terre dans laquelle je vis, dans laquelle je suis ancrée, n'est pas un qui est à craindre. Non, je viens devant toi et j'ai peur et je tremble parce que je suis prêt à te demander, Seigneur, que veux-tu que je fasse? Que veux-tu que je fasse avec la crise climatique, l'extinction des espèces, la pollution de l'air et de l'eau, des réfugiés environnement et bien plus encore? La crise écologique dans laquelle je vis est de fabrication humaine, de ma propre fabrication. Car peu importe ma part, je suis complice. Ma peur, mon tremblement, c'est parce que je sais que lorsque je te demande, Seigneur, que veux-tu que je fasse? Ta réponse sera claire. Et ensuite, je devrais répondre. Je dois porter ma croix et agir en réponse à la crise écologique. Je dois perdre ma vie pour la gagner, pour vivre toute l'exigence d'un lien plus profond au Christ dans une action écologique. Alors, remplis-moi, Dieu. Remplis-moi de courage et de force, de constance et de détermination. Remplis-moi d'humilité et de douceur, de compassion et de miséricorde. Remplis-moi afin que ma peur et mon tremblement puissent s'atténuer et que je puisse, en effet, te demander, Seigneur, que veux-tu que je fasse? Et être disposé et capable de répondre. Au nom de ton Fils Jésus, qui t'a posé cette question chaque jour jusqu'à la croix et à la vie nouvelle. Amen.
Amen. Merci beaucoup. Could we please bring Way Forward 01 up on the screen? Way Forward 01, GS 08, Climate Justice Commitment. Facilitation team.
Thank you, moderator. There was broad support for the proposal with some concern to strengthen the language from could to will. At the same time, there was a need to recognize some smaller communities of faith need to move at their own pace. In general, there is concurrence with the goal of moving the target to 80% reduction in emissions from 2050 to 2030. We noted the absence of any discussion of the wider policy reforms needed to reduce overall emissions in Canada. The United Church's overall emissions are only a fraction of the total in Canada, and our climate justice work needs to be focused on public policy reforms at all levels of government by all people, paid, accountable ministry, and lay. We noted the acute absence of this level of potential action. we suggest that the General Council affirm this proposal.
Thank you. M, could we have poll number 1 being brought forward, please? Do you feel that what the facilitation team heard generally reflects a summary of all of the discussion groups? I would invite the poll to be closed and the results shared. And could we please open poll number 2? Do you feel the suggested way forward reflects what was heard? You can close the poll and share the results. Thank you. Before we move to the wording, I'd like to check with Murray Spear. Murray? Murray?
Thank you, moderator. I just wanted to highlight that the emphasis in the facilitation team's report on the fact that the groups didn't talk about public policy reforms seems out of place to me, because the proposal does not talk about public policy reforms. And so my concern is that it's going into the record that we didn't pay attention to this, when in fact we weren't invited to pay attention to that. And so I would like that comment to be added to the way forward, or to the next steps that we might take.
Thank you, Murray. I appreciate that. Recognizing what we saw in the polls and have heard here, I would invite us to move to the wording.
Thank you, moderator. Based on the recommendation from the facilitation team, and with the recognition that proposals were often written with the language of should until it becomes something that the council thus adopts, the wording before the council is that the 44th General Council 2022, in response to GS08, affirms this proposal.
This is moved by Michael Blair, seconded by Sue Broderick. Is there anyone who wishes to go to the speakers list? Daniel McDonald.
Thank you, moderator. Daniel McDonald, Region 15. I just wanted a quick clarification perhaps around timeline on this proposal. Recognizing again the urgency of this matter, I'm looking particularly at the first bullet that talks about kind of developing a climate strategy with a commitment to measure, report, and adjust as we learn and grow. I wonder if that language needs to be strengthened slightly to include kind of a reporting deadline, at least for the first stage of that strategy. So I don't know if that's absolutely necessary, but I'd appreciate a bit more feedback maybe from the General Secretary as to what that reporting structure would look like. Thank you.
Thank you. General Secretary, can I have a sense of what our plans might be in a general way about this?
So moderator, this particular item is also part of one of the strategic objectives, part of the strategic plan. And we are committed to actually giving the church numbers. So I think as soon as whatever the decision the council makes, we'll begin to operationalize that. We've been doing some of that through the current program on Faithful Footprints, but by the fall, we'll have our process in place in terms of how we'll be measuring and reporting to the church. So at least annually, we'll report to the church on where we are at.
Thank you. David Leighton Brown.
Thank you very much, moderator. David Leighton Brown from Shining Waters Regional Council. I strongly support this proposal, and I'm delighted that the United Church of Canada will be expressing its recognition of the severity of the climate crisis and commitment to working to alleviate it. My only caution is promising more than we as a church can deliver. I noted the sentence in the facilitation team report about concurrence with the goal of shifting the 80% reduction in emissions from 2050 to 2030. At the community of faith level, it is impossible to reduce emissions by 80% while maintaining existing heating systems. We can't get 80% by improving insulation or cutting off drafts at windows or changing light bulbs. The cost of an 80% reduction at the community of faith level is beyond the capacity of most communities of faith. I only worry that we may be setting ourselves up as promising more than we can deliver. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any other names on the speakers list, we will move to the ballot. Could the ballot please be opened? If you are in favor of this proposal, please click, sorry, if you are in favor of the proposal that the 44th General Council 2022 in response to GS08 affirms this proposal, please click yes. If you are opposed, please click no. To do that, please go to Feedloop, voting. Your ballot should be open. If not, please refresh the screen and then click continue. And when you're ready to confirm your ballot, confirm it, and it will come through to us. There are approximately 30 more seconds left in the ballot. The ballot can now be closed. That proposal passes. Let's take a moment to hear some words of faith as we prepare for the next section of proposals.
When asked, "Who is Jesus to me?" I say God's heart, because I believe that Jesus came to this world to show us God's heart, to show us how to love each other, to show us how to live together, to show us that God is with us in creation, that God is with us inside of us as the light, that God is with us when we encounter another person, encounter another part of creation, and when we express our faith through caring for that creation, through caring for other people. Jesus shows us God's heart because he showed us how to love. Scripture tells us of the many different people that Jesus loved, and not just in a way that is superficial, but in a way that made a difference in their lives, in a way that welcomed them back into community, in a way that cared for them right where they were, not in a way that told them who they were supposed to be and had failed at, but in a way that recognized them for who they were. So it was God's heart in Jesus that met God's heart in the other people that he was encountering. And so I truly believe that that's who Jesus is.
Seigneur, tu es dans ce temps de Noël comme un puits de lumière au-dessus de nous. Mais tu es en nous, avec et pour nous. Tu étais, tu es et tu seras. Et par toi, les possibles sont possibles, car ta bonté veille sur nous dans tes promesses.
Amen. As we continue with the work of the proposals, I would turn to the business table for a moment. Alan?
Thank you, moderator. The next piece of business we would like to bring before the council is a new piece of business, GS16, which is our attempt to respond to the Part B of GCE06. So you'll remember from earlier in the meeting that we had realized that it was not good to put it as a part of the way forward because the facilitation team suggested that they did not hear enough in their response. But in our questioning as to ways that we could move this forward, so this important piece of work that comes from work over many years as well does not get lost, the response that we would like to present before the council, if I can get those on the screen for me, I will read to you and then explain. So our recommendation is that the 44th General Council 2022 refer section B of GCE 06 regarding designated lay ministry back to the GCE for further discussion and clarification to be returned to the next annual meeting of the 44th General Council. As an interim measure, regional councils are encouraged to grant a license to perform the sacraments to retired DLMs who are providing Sunday supply to communities of faith until the next meeting of the 44th General Council. So our attempt is to enable the space for the conversations to broaden so that folks have an understanding of what they need to do, because our understanding, our interpretation of what the facilitation team reported back was that there just wasn't enough understanding and work done. And so we want to enable that to still happen and not lose the piece of work, but recognize that now this council is not ready to make a decision on this. Or I guess on the contents of Part B. So that's the refer for continued work.
Thank you, Alan. So this arises from the discussions at the request of the General Secretary and is before you, that the 44th General Council 2022 refers section B of GCE 06 regarding designated lay ministry back to the GCE for further discussion and clarification to be returned to the next annual meeting of the 44th General Council. As an interim measure, regional councils are encouraged to grant a license to perform the sacraments to retired DLMs who are providing Sunday supply to communities of faith until the next meeting of the 44th General Council. I'm going to ask General Secretary, are you prepared to move this at this time?
Moderator, I'm prepared to move it. And at some point in time, I wonder if I may also have the privilege of speaking to it.
It's moved by the General Secretary and seconded by Sue Broderick. And since you're the mover, we'll start with you, and then I will go to Wendy Loudon. So General Secretary, I'd like to speak first.
Thank you, moderator. Over quite a number of councils, this question of ministry leadership in the life of the church has come forward in many ways. And we recognize that the ministry leadership is a critical part of our our future life together as a church and feel very strongly that this needs to be addressed. This council, in discussing the proposal that came to it, did not have, many of the groups did not have opportunity to speak to it, and yet we think it's an important piece that needs some resolution. And so the recommendation then is for it to come back to the executive for some further clarification and be brought back. But it is critical for us, given the reality of where we are as the United Church of Canada these days, that we attend to the issue of ministry leadership in its full breadth in the life of the church. Thank you, moderator.
Wendy Loudon, thank you.
Mr. Moderator, first of all, I'd like to thank Michael for his commitment to this. We, as a designated lay minister due to retire September 1st, I am speaking, of course, for this, but it's a matter of, for me, it's a matter of designated lay ministers being able to have pride in what we've done. I'm sorry. As a minister for almost 20 years in 2 provinces and being president of conference, to be told that we're going to be shut down or shut out is not easy. And I appreciate very much that this has come forward. And I want to thank you for this because there's an awful lot of us out there. You let us out of the box and we kind of exploded on you. And I realize that. And I am not sure where we're going or where the church is going, but there are a lot of us who have put in a lot of years and would really appreciate being recognized in retirement. Thank you.
Judy Zarubik.
Thank you, moderator. Judy Zarubik, Commissioner for Western Ontario Waterways and a retired DLM. More work does need to be done. The failure of the one order did not say get rid of DLMs. There's been comments that DLM is not what it was created to be. I would suggest that not only is that true, the ordered stream of ordained and diaconal ministry is also not what it was created to be, and neither was the United Church of Canada. We have evolved. Trying to return to what was is not just. DLMs begin their journey to recognition in the candidacy process of discernment, education, and examination for suitability and readiness for ministry in the United Church of Canada, as to those looking to ordination and commissioning. For me, to see the different regional treatments of DLMs without appointment and retired is unjust. Some regional councils recognized those not appointed DLMs and retired as ministry personnel, and others do not. One day I am seen in the denomination as ministry personnel, and the next day, because my appointment is finished, I'm not seen as ministry personnel again. And later, when I again get another appointment or I'm retired, I am seen as ministry personnel. The community faith that I worship at and the community I live in sees me as ministry. The United Church does not. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue on, I appreciate what has been said so far, and of course the passion that's been said with it. I would remind us that we're talking about what's on the proposal that is before us. Stephen Loa.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, Judy and Wendy, for your words and for your long service as DLMs. And I confer with what they're saying, and this is difficult, and I understand that we need to move forward, and perhaps maybe even discuss this a bit further. But it makes it difficult to want to do that. I don't know if this is appropriate, but I would like to put through something now, and move this, that be it resolved that all currently recognized designated lay ministers who are either serving in congregational appointments or recognized and seeking a congregational appointment be grandfathered into the order of ministry in the United Church of Canada, and that all recognized retired DLMs be fully recognized for their service. I don't know
Thank
if
you
I
very
can.
much, Stephen. And I really hate to do this to you, but I'm afraid that's out of order because we have a motion on the floor.
All right, thank you, moderator.
But thank you. Sandra Thompson's.
Thank you, Sandra Thompson's Region 15. This is an extremely important justice issue. I hope that the fact that our group thought that this was an issue where those that were experts on the situation should have the power of telling their stories, and we've heard very brief versions of a couple of them, would be sufficient guide to making sure that this justice issue would be addressed. So I want to thank the General Secretary for the interim measure and urge that things be done quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to make sure that I know who the person was who spoke before. Was it Steve Loa? Stephen Loa? Stephen, if you'd like to make your motion, you can make it the motion after it's done, and it would go under new business for us, but it can't be done while this motion is on the floor. Okay, just so you know, I'm not trying to get rid of you with it, but you do have the ability to get it as new business. Paul Douglas Wolfel, and I'll note that Paul is the fifth speaker on this.
Moderator, just asking for clarity. The General Secretary indicated that many did not have a chance to speak on the matter, but we're referring it back to the GCE for clarity. So I'm not certain what more the GCE needs to do if people did not have a chance to speak on it. I note, sir, that the General Council Executive has spent 2 meetings on this matter already. We have heard from DLMs on the issue. I'm just asking, what more are we asking the General Council Executive to do?
Thank you, Paul. General Secretary, is there any comment to make before we move to the ballot?
So, moderator, one of the privileges that this council or our system allows the General Secretary is to offer some guidance or help to offer some guidance to the church. I began by saying that the question of ministry leadership and the variety of ways in which ministry leadership happens in this church is a critical one. And with regards to the conversations that has happened at this council, I think it's important for the conversation to be had. And I think the General Council Executive will need to think about a process in which to engage the conversation with the church on this issue of the breadth of ministry leadership, and particularly as it relates to the DLM. So the request is that if we, for a third time, not take action on the role of DLM in the life of our church, we are creating a level of crisis in the church that is frankly untenable, and so it needs to be dealt with. And I'm simply asking that the executive be able to take another crack at this.
Thank you. We're ready to move to the ballot now, so I would ask that the ballot be opened. If you are in favor that the 44th General Council 2022 refers Section B of GCE 06 regarding designated lay ministry back to the GCE for further discussion and clarification to be returned to the next annual meeting of the 44th General Council. As an interim measure, regional councils are encouraged to grant a license to perform the sacraments to retired DLMs who are providing Sunday supply to communities of faith until the next meeting of the 44th General Council. Then please click yes. If you are opposed, please click no. Then confirm your ballot. Once your ballot is confirmed, it will come through to us. Voting is open on the ballot. You know how to get there. And it will be open for a minute from this point. Seconds remaining. The ballot can now be closed. That proposal, or that motion carries. We'll now move to way forward 12, please. Way forward 12, GS14, challenging anti-Semitism in the United Church of Canada. To the facilitation team, please.
Thank you, moderator. There's generally broad support for this proposal. Some groups made connections to the church's justice work on the Palestine-Israel conflict. Several groups also highlighted the importance of coming to a clear definition of what we mean by the term anti-Semitism. In addition, there were calls for educational resources that are informed by a diversity of Jewish voices so that we can continue to grow together. We suggest that the General Council affirm this proposal.
Could poll number 1 be brought up, please? Do you feel that what the facilitation team heard generally reflects a summary of all the discussion groups? I would invite the poll to be closed and the numbers to be shared. Could poll number 2 be brought up? Do you feel the suggested way forward reflects what was heard? I would invite you to end the poll and share the results. Recognizing the results of the poll, I would go to the wording, please.
From the facilitation team, the wording before the council is that the 44th General Council 2022, in response to GS14, affirm this proposal.
And it is moved by Michael Blair and seconded by Sue Broderick. It's been moved and seconded. Is there anyone who wishes to go to the speakers list? Murray Spear.
Thank you, moderator. This issue, I believe, is very important, particularly given the consideration that will be undertaken regarding the situation in Palestine. I don't know if this is an amendment or not. I would like to ensure that we are prepared to not only study and learn and express, but also to take concrete action to combat anti-Judaism and anti-Semitism in Canada and in the United Church. And I would just strongly urge that if we take concrete action against the actions of the State of Israel in Palestine, that we also must take concrete action in supporting our Jewish siblings and neighbors in Canada. I don't think that's an amendment, but that's my level of commitment to this matter. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you, Murray. Sam Grotenberg.
Thank you, moderator. I would echo what Murray said as well, but also in support of affirming this proposal. I wonder if there's a way to recognize the comment from the facilitation team that they heard calls for resources informed by a diversity of Jewish voices. If this work is to be undertaken, I think it is imperative upon us to consult with Canadian Jewish leadership, not just figure out what we mean by anti-Semitism without their input. And so, I guess that isn't really an amendment either, but yeah, thank you.
I'll just remind the council that all of those notes, including the notes from the council from discussions, will go to the appropriate people at General Council office to make if and when these things are passed. Gord Waldy. Gord, you're live.
Yeah, I tried to unmute myself before they let me, so. Gord Waldy from Northern Spirit Regional Council. It's an implementation question for me. I think this is putting flesh on our commitment to be an anti-racist church. I also know that in this regional council, we've been trying to create a task group about what does it mean to live into being an anti-racist church, and we've had no take up. So how, as part of the implementation, how do we get our communities to buy in? Because it's great for General Council to have a discussion. It accomplishes very little if our communities don't buy in. So it's more a question on implementation that comes to my mind.
Thank you, Gord. Sandra Thompsons.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is the right place to be saying this, and perhaps I should just send a comment to the equity desk, but I have heard the expression anti-Muslim also used, or anti-Palestinian also used in our meetings. And in the interest of equity, and perhaps even to give further clarity to what anti-Semitism is, we might consider as part of that education package, understanding anti-Palestinianism as well.
Richard Marceau.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator. Sorry, I was trying to unmute. My name is Richard Marceau. I am a Jewish guest to this council. And I understand that this resolution came from a follow-up to the anti-Semitic incident that I was the target of on April the 6th. I want to start by thanking all those of you who reached out to me directly after the incident. It warmed my heart after a very difficult moment for somebody like me who really believes in interfaith dialogue in Canada. As a member of the organized Jewish community, it pains me to say that Jews are the most targeted religious community in Canada in terms of hate crimes, according to Statistics Canada. And unfortunately, the source of anti-Semitism is not exclusively on the far right, and we saw it here in this very sacred space. In 2003, the United Church of Canada produced a very thoughtful document on the issue of anti-Semitism after a thorough engagement with the Jewish community. And I believe on those issues, as it was mentioned before, engagement with communities are important. It respects the not about us, without us. And I see this resolution, I hope it will be adopted as reaffirming the document bearing faithful witness that was created in 2003. And I hope that it can serve as a basis for an ongoing discussion. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Isha. Sabil Ecumenical Center, I believe it's Omar, but I'm not sure. Sabil? There.
Yes, Omar, thank you very much. I mean, Sabil, as a partner of the United Church of Canada, we've spent the last 3 years studying the topic of anti-Semitism. One reason is because Christianity is, sadly and embarrassingly, is the main source of anti-Semitism throughout history, anti-Judaism and speaking against the Jewish people. The second part is all forms of discrimination are unacceptable as human beings and as people and as followers of Christ, including Islamophobia and all forms of discrimination. But what always comes to our attention when the topic of anti-Semitism comes up, sometimes it is done in the right way, to silence anti-Semitic voices. But sometimes it's done to silence the voices of Palestinians living under military occupation. There's a variety of definitions that are available on the topic of anti-Semitism. Sabil is producing a book together with over 200 scholars. There's the Jerusalem Declaration. There's multiple ones. So we ask you, when you're engaging in defining anti-Semitism, you keep in mind that you are against all forms of injustice and oppression and discrimination. Thank you, and appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Seeing that there is no one else on the speakers list, we will move to the ballot. Please open the ballot. It will be open for 1 minute from this point. If you are in favor that the 44th General Council 2022, in response to GS14, affirm this proposal, I would ask you to click yes. If you are opposed, please click no, then click continue and confirm your ballot, and it will come through. You know that you need to get there by going to voting on feed loop. The ballot should be present when you do that. If not, please refresh your page. The ballot will be open for another 30 seconds. I would ask that the ballot now be closed. That proposal passes, is carried. Could we please move to could we please move to way forward 12?
Moderator, it's 11. Sorry.
Apologies. Could we please move to way forward 11? Way forward 11, SW01, decriminalization of illicit substances for personal use and harm reduction. I turn to the facilitation team.
Thank you, moderator. There is strong support for the proposal, with most discussion groups affirming its direction. Some groups had suggestions, including raising issues of safe supply as part of harm reduction and using language that is reflective of current terminology, such as replacing people with a substance use disorder with people who use drugs. This affirms the reality that not all individuals and families impacted by the opioid crisis are diagnosed with disorders. Many have been recreational users. We suggest that the General Council affirm this proposal.
Thank you. M, could I ask that proposal 1 be brought up, please? Do you feel that what the facilitation team heard generally reflects a summary of all the discussion groups? The poll can be closed and the results can be shared. I would ask that poll number 2 please be open. Do you feel the suggested way forward reflects what was heard? I would invite the poll to be closed and the results to be shared. Recognizing that the community generally feels that, overwhelmingly feels that those two were answered, I'd move to the wording.
Thank you, moderator. With the recognition that the language changes recommended or talked about in the facilitation team's report can be included in the implementation of the work for this proposal, the wording before the council is that the 44th General Council 2022, in response to SW01, affirms this proposal.
This is moved by Michael Blair, seconded by Sue Broderick. Evan Swan-Smith.
Thank you, moderator. I was one of the people who suggested the change in language in the proposal. And while I am happy that disorder was removed, I have concerns about the fact that instead of it being people who use substances, it's people who use drugs, which doesn't capture substance use in its whole, including alcohol and prescription pills and all of those other pieces.
Thank you. We'll make sure that that gets taken into account. Excuse me, Carmen Lansdowne.
Thank you, moderator. We took the language from the Center for Canadian Policy, no, not CCPA, it was the Center for Canadian Drug Policy Alternatives, and I have no issue with changing it to people who use substances. I think that's a good inclusion, Evan.
Thank you very much. Karen Jaden.
Karen Jaden, Prairie to Pine Regional Council. Our discussion group was one that was not unanimously in favor of this. We appreciated the opportunity this gave us to talk about the issues, but from our experience across the church, there was a feeling that moving to this position at this point might actually impede some discussion and education because not everywhere across the country is ready to consider decriminalization, even politically. So we were informed, especially by one of the lay members of our church who worked with people who experienced substance abuse and the impacts of it. So it was a very helpful conversation. I just wanted to read that into the record.
Thank you very much. Liz Church.
Yes, moderator, I am one who is very in favor of this happening, having experienced personally some of the things that happen because of criminalization. The fact that we are working toward offering so much more help, I believe, when we are able to meet with people and discover some of the things about them, as to why they are in the position they're in, and to be educated. We as ministry personnel, to be educated is a tremendous, not only is it a tremendous thing to have happen, but it's a tremendous privilege to be able to help people who are suffering in this way. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else on the speakers list, I will ask that the ballot now be opened for a minute. If you are in favor that the 44th General Council 2022 in response to SW01 affirms this proposal, I would ask that you click yes. If you are opposed, please click no. Then continue, and if you're ready with your ballot, confirm and will be sent in. To get there, you need to go to Feedloop, click on voting, and it should open the ballot. If not, try refreshing your screen. There are approximately 30 seconds left in this ballot. I would ask that the ballot be closed. That proposal carries. Let's take a moment for scripture, and then we'll continue with our proposals.
마가복음 8장 27절에서 30절 말씀입니다. 예수와 제자들이 가이사랴 빌립보 여러 마을로 나가실새 노중에서 제자들에게 물어 가라사대 사람들이 나를 누구랴 하느냐 여자와 가로되 세례 요한이라 하고 더러는 엘리야 더러는 선지자 중에 하나라 하나이다. 또 물으시되 너희는 나를 누구라 하느냐 베드로가 대답하여 가로되 주는 그리스도 신이이다 하매 이에 자기의 일을 아무에게도 말하지 말라 경계하시고
chichewa. Ndipo anatuluka Yesu ndi ophunzira ake nalowa ku midzi ya ku Kaisareya Filipi. Ndipo panjira anafunsa ophunzira ake nanena, kodi anthu ananena kuti ine ndine yani? Ndipo ananena nati Yohane Mbatizi, ndi ena Eliya, koma ena mmodzi wa aneneri. Ndipo iye anawafunsa, koma inu munena kuti ndine yani? Petro anayankha nanena naye, ndinu Khristu. Ndipo anawawuzitsa iwo kuti asanene kwa munthu mmodzi za iye.
Mark 8:27-30. Peter declares that Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him.
Amen. Let's continue on now with proposal Way Forward 33. NKA 03, recognition of la table des ministères en français. Facilitation team.
Thank you, moderator. First, I would like to apologize for my inability to read this en français. There is general support for the recognition of Francophone ministries as an important constituency of the United Church of Canada, and for language diversity more broadly. The discussion surfaced our challenges of not having lived into being a truly intercultural church. Many of the groups raised practical suggestions regarding shifting a network into a structural part of the church. We suggest referral back to the General Secretary for further review of the discussion group notes, comments, to determine a way forward.
Thank you, Em. Could poll 1 go up, please? Avez-vous l'impression que le rapport de l'équipe d'animation est une synthèse à tête des échanges de l'ensemble des groupes de discussion? I would invite you to close the poll and share the results. Number 2, please. Estimez-vous que les voix proposées reflètent adéquatement ce que l'équipe d'animation a entendu? I would invite you to end the poll and share the results. Thank you very much. I would like us to take just a few minutes to hear from those who are concerned that this did not reflect, the way forward did not reflect. So I would invite 1 or 2 people who feels that it did not reflect what the discussion group said. This way forward did not reflect what the discussion group said. If anyone wishes to speak. Isaac Canto.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur le modérateur. En ce qui me concerne, tel qu'il ressort des différentes discussions, il apparaît que la majorité est favorable. Mais je ne comprends pas comment on ne peut pas prendre une décision actuelle, vu que c'est un problème important, puisque le fait de reconnaître directement le ministère en français, ce n'est qu'un acte de justice qui reconnaît effectivement ce que la table est à l'Église unie et que jusqu'à présent, on ne l'ait pas reconnu en tant que tel est quelque chose qu'il faudrait réparer, puisque ça fait partie intégrante de l'Église. Les autres conseils généraux ont affirmé l'importance du français et le dernier conseil général avait effectivement reconnu. Donc, si on ne comprend pas et on renvoie encore, je me demande si ce n'est pas une manière de ne pas respecter la décision des autres conseils qui ont reconnu la place du français et en conséquence, avec la disparition du consistoire laurentien, c'était une occasion favorable maintenant de restituer quelque chose qui est de droit compte tenu de la place du français à l'Église unie de cette instance-là. Donc, c'est tout simplement ce que je voudrais mentionner, que de ce fait, il y a eu décalage entre la reconnaissance de ce qui est ressorti de la considération et la proposition faite maintenant. Donc, je suggérerais, en ce qui me concerne, que le Conseil prenne une décision appropriée. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Kathy Hamilton.
Moderator, I'm going to speak in English because the vast majority of this church speaks English, and I think that's part of the problem. 6 years ago, when the Comprehensive Review Task Group's work was affirmed, I remember distinctly the moderator asking Nicole Baudry to trust that the General Secretary would work to find a structure that would support French ministry in this church. And she graciously accepted and trusted that that would happen. The work that the General Secretary did resulted in the formation of La Table, which exists and is functioning very well, with relationships with 9 of the regional councils. It's a very dynamic and good group. All that this is asking for is the recognition of what already exists. And it exists because the General Secretary worked with the French language community of our church to make this happen. And so I fail to understand why this would be referred back to the General Secretary for further discussion. The discussion has happened. The table exists. The table is asking for recognition. I ask that we affirm this proposal and refer it to the General Secretary for action.
Thank you. Christine, I'm going to ask if you could, what I'd like to do is I'd like to move to the motion now. Would you be willing to be the first speaker on the motion itself? Ou est-ce que tu parles à ce moment?
Je voulais simplement ajouter un argument, mais je pense que ma sœur Cathy a fait très bien.
OK.
Si
Maintenant,
avez...
maintenant, c'est bon.
So should I just say what I wanted to say?
Yep, you go ahead.
As I did say yesterday, we have this reality now in Canada, all around Canada, of people coming from many countries where French is a second or a third language, their own cultural and language being their first. And now I was thinking about this other way forward, number 16, where we say that DLMs should have the proper training. And we did vote in favor of this. You know what? This is in relation to the future of our church throughout Canada. Training, as well as recognizing the French is an entry language for these communities, is absolutely imperative. Otherwise, we can say goodbye to many congregations. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to finish with Hewitt Holmes, and then we'll go to the motion itself.
Thank you, Moderator. Hewitt Holmes, Shining Waters Facilitation Team. Moderator, I just want us to be mindful that in our work, we did say that many of the groups raised practical questions regarding shifting from a network into a structured part of the church. That we felt was significant. Hence, we wanted the General Secretary to do further work as to what does that what the questions are and how those questions can be resolved. And so that was where we landed. We did not, and that was the best place we landed because of the group's questions and of practicality.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask, please. Sorry, one moment, please. Yeah. I'm going to ask, please, that we move and second this, and then Samuel will be the first person on the speakers list. So, Alan?
Recognition that the facilitation team's report that does indicate support for the recognition, and as was mentioned by Hewitt, the desire to work out the practicalities. The recommendation from the facilitation team leads to this wording before the council, that the 44th General Council 2022, in response to NKA 03, refers this proposal to the General Secretary for further review of the discussion group comments to determine a way forward.
Thank you. And it's moved by Michael Blair, seconded by Sue Broderick. Samuel Dansoro.
Merci, modérateur. La motion telle qu'écrite est mieux que ce qu'elle avait été il y a quelques jours, mais elle n'est pas acceptable à mes yeux et je pense aux yeux de beaucoup de francophones et même de personnes qui ne seraient pas francophones. Cassie, de même que Christine Marie ont bien parlé et ont fait une proposition concrète. Alors, est-ce que ce serait acceptable qu'on affirme la proposition et qu'après, on la réfère pour action au secrétaire général? Il me semble que c'est quelque chose qui confirmerait la promesse. Nous sommes quand même des gens d'honneur et des gens de parole qui avaient été faites il y a plusieurs années et qui a permis à beaucoup de personnes qui se sentaient négligées de croire encore que oui, pour l'Église unie du Canada, non seulement le français est important, comme on le dit, mais qu'il est essentiel. Et c'est ça la nuance que beaucoup de personnes, à mon avis, humble avis, ne saisissent pas. Le français n'est pas comme une langue comme les autres. Le français est une partie intégrante et essentielle de l'Église unie du Canada. Alors, on ne demande pas quelque chose de révolutionnaire ou de nouveau, mais qu'on reconnaisse ce qui est et qu'on le reconnaisse maintenant. Il n'y a pas de raison d'attendre encore plus longtemps. Merci.
Merci. Blair Odney.
Thank you, Moderator Richard. Thank you for allowing me to speak. For me, this is a question of who gets to do what, who does what, who's responsible for what. I don't think there's any doubt that the French language ministries are essential to the life of the denomination, and we have policy that says that. And now we're handing this to the executive or to the general secretary to implement that. And here's a question, and I think we're just continuing with that. The way we do business. And so I speak in favor of this, absolutely.
Morgan Pierre-Paul.
Oui, bonjour, merci beaucoup, monsieur le modérateur. Je voudrais simplement dire que je fais confiance à l'intelligence collective des groupes et je comprends l'inquiétude qu'il peut y avoir sur les changements que ça peut impliquer. Par contre, je pense que c'est pas tout à fait vrai et je suis pas en train de contredire ce qui a été dit, mais je pense que la réalité de la proposition, c'est que la table des ministères en français a déjà ces pouvoirs-là, elle a déjà des pouvoirs décisionnels qui lui ont été donnés par ses statuts ou qui ont été négociés avec les conseils régionaux avec lesquels elle a passé des alliances. Et donc, les pouvoirs sont déjà là et on ne demande aucun changement, on ne demande pas plus d'autonomie, on ne demande pas plus de pouvoir. Donc, ça n'aurait pas de changement au niveau décisionnel, au niveau politique, etc. La seule demande, c'est que la table existe déjà. La seule chose qu'on demande, c'est de pouvoir sécuriser cette existence. Si nous sommes une partie réelle de l'Église, autant en ce qui concerne, on a dit combien le français était l'avenir, mais on peut rappeler aussi combien le français est aussi l'histoire du Canada, puisque des protestants francophones sont arrivés dès les débuts de la Nouvelle-France. Voilà, donc, mais je pense juste que c'est juste sécuriser ce qui existe, nous reconnaître, et ça ne fait pas tellement de changements. Donc, je ne sais pas si ce serait possible, comme ça a été proposé, éventuellement de pouvoir modifier la formulation et de dire que l'on appuie cette proposition et éventuellement que ça puisse être confié au secrétaire général pour pouvoir vérifier s'il y a des détails à réfléchir davantage par la suite.
Merci. Nicole Baudry. Une instant, s'il vous plaît. OK.
Oui, en effet, comme Cathy a dit tout à l'heure, elle m'a rappelé qu'il y a 6 ans, j'avais prié la secrétaire générale de ne pas laisser tomber tout le travail des ministères en français. Et suite à ça, bien, la table a été créée. Et maintenant, now I'm asking this court, I'm asking this general counsel to act and not send this back to the general secretary, but to vote against sending it back to the general secretary so that finally the next step will be taken so that la table des ministères en français has its place in the manual. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you. That was our 5th speaker. And so I would like to check with the General Secretary or with the business table. So just so my understanding is clear, if this if this proposal were to be voted down, that would go as the proposal that it's referring to would then go to the General Counsel Executive. I just need to check.
Most likely. Yes, moderator.
Thank you very much. I just needed to understand what our process is. So, friends, I would ask that the ballot be opened. If you are in favor that the 44th General Council 2022, in response to NK03, refers this proposal to the General Secretary for further review of the discussion, group comments to determine a way forward, please click yes. If you are opposed, please click no. The ballot is open for another 50 seconds. To get there, please go to feed loop, voting. If the ballot doesn't show up when you go there, please click refresh. After you voted, click confirm or continue, and then confirm, and your ballot will come through. The ballot now closed. The proposal carries. Friends, we have come to 2 o'clock, and so we're going to take a moment for song and then go to our break. I would like to thank you for the work that has been done to this point and look forward to seeing you when you come back for the rest of the work of the day.
Dance with the Spirit early in the morning. Walk with the Spirit throughout the long day. Look and hope for a new life reborn in to show you the way.